Hello viewers, I'm Daniel Kasahun. This is ETV Language. In this edition, we spend time with German Ambassador to Ethiopia, Britta Wagner. We will discuss issues about Ethiopia and the continent. Stay with us. Ambassador, welcome to EBC Studio.
Thank you very much.
Recently, the President of Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, made official visit to Ethiopia for, I think, 4 days. And that was meant to get first-hand information about the reform happening in this country, and probably to support Abiy Ahmed's reform program. The President had spent time with Ethiopian President and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia and other senior government officials, including Commissioner of the African Union. What was his take from this visit? What was Germany's take from this visit?
Well, this was a very important visit indeed, and as you mentioned, it came at a specific point in time. It was a deliberate decision to come now in order to express recognition and respect for the reforms that are going on, that the present government is initiating, and to express support for these bold changes that are taking place here in this country. Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the Federal President of Germany, he has been to Ethiopia before. He used to be Foreign Minister twice, and he had come to Ethiopia before. The last time he was in Ethiopia, it was in 2014. And whomever he met, he mentioned, well, I have been to Ethiopia, but now I have the impression it's a different country. So he learned a lot about what the visions are, both by the President and by the Prime Minister. He met with the Finance Minister in a gathering of business people to discuss business opportunities in the country. So it was a very diverse visit. He visited Lalibela also to pay tribute to one of the most ancient monuments of Christianity.
Right. Since last April, sweeping reform is happening in this country. And how is Germany aligning itself with this new phenomenon in this country?
As I mentioned, we are very supportive. The President, but also the Foreign Minister, who has come last year already in May to show his respect to what's going on here and to learn more about what's going on. So Germany is very positive, very supportive, and we really want to support and to cooperate in order to make it successful, not only within Ethiopia but also for the region as a whole.
Anything special you identified in this country?
Well, we appreciate very much the opening up. We know the challenges that this means for a country. We have been very active in supporting Ethiopia for a long time already, and we are, for example, very involved in technical and vocational training. And I understand that this is also very much a priority of this government in order to qualify people and in order to give young people a perspective in life so that they can find jobs.
Once the current Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, visited Ethiopia, and in her visit to Ethiopia, she promised or told the then Prime Minister Hermann Desalegn that her government encourages and supports German investors to do business in Ethiopia. How did it go?
Yeah, Angela Merkel, she came in October 2016, which was a very difficult time in the country. The state of emergency was just declared, and she indeed made clear that Germany wants to support and that we want to support and to assist Ethiopia in bringing investors to the country. That has, by the way, not changed. Also, the new government is very keen on attracting foreign investments from Germany, and you may have read about in the media about the visit. There was an economic roundtable with business people. The president was accompanied by a business delegation, and they met with the investment commissioner and with the finance minister. They discussed possibilities, opportunities, and also challenges for businesses to come. Volkswagen signed a memorandum of understanding by which the investment commission and Volkswagen agree on developing a mobility concept, and finally also to establishing a production plant in Ethiopia. So that is one example. There is a lot of interest among German businesses to come to Ethiopia, because everybody is thrilled by what's going on here and by the potential the country is offering in principle. On the other hand, there are still a lot of challenges for business people to come.
What are those challenges you identify?
Well, the challenges are like problems to have access to foreign currency, red tape, a lot of complicated administration, for example, sometimes also infrastructure. So there are still challenges, and we think businesses have to make a decision, an informed decision, to know what the challenges in the countries are.
You're right. These bottlenecks are well identified by the Ethiopian government, while Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed addresses the parliament this week. He mentioned it. It's not easy to do business in Ethiopia, and in the world standard, Ethiopia is ranked 150, the lowest
in the doing business index.
It's not, in ease of doing business.
Yeah, in ease of doing business, exactly.
Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So what are the main challenges that German investors face?
Yeah, I mentioned it mainly. It's bureaucracy, red tape, currency issues, sometimes logistics, though I think logistics have improved quite considerably during the last years, and communication sometimes is an issue, like the internet, but things have improved.
So what are remedies that you can suggest in order to solve?
Yeah, I mean, well, for example, and that's what the investment commissioner promised to do, that investors, for example, who have already obtained a business license, they have to renew it after a year, that they don't have to deal with various ministries which do not communicate perfectly with one another, but just to create one kind of one-stop shop where they can do their administrative procedures. This would, for example, greatly help. The issue of foreign currency probably is not something that can be solved very easily. I know that the government is working on this, while our people who are experienced in the banking sectors, they say, well, in the end it will not be possible really to remedy it without opening up step by step the banking sector also.
Let's come to development assistance of Germany to Ethiopia, particularly in technical and vocational education. What does the picture look like?
During the last decades, there have been a lot of progress made by the Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian government that chose to organize the vocational training according to the German model. A big number of vocational training colleges and institutions have been established, have been equipped, and there is also a lot of advice and counseling given by German experts in this field. So I think there is a lot of progress, but of course there is a lot to be done. When our president was here, he was visiting the teachers training college, which Germany supports mainly with expertise and with equipment to train vocational training teachers, because if you lack teachers you cannot have a good training system countrywide.
In which specific areas?
Well, in automotive, in woodwork, in electrical engineering, in all these areas which are very important to develop an economy there are institutes which train young people.
How are the Ethiopians in receiving your training?
Oh, those people whom I have met, I think they are very happy to be trained in those institutions which are supported by Germans and by the German system, which, as I said, the Ethiopian government has very expressly chosen to follow. I think many of them are very happy when you see them. They learn a lot, and well, a number of them really find jobs afterwards. Some of them set up their own businesses, which is also one way of giving a perspective to these young people. For example, these auto mechanics, they open up a small garage, for example.
All right. Germany said seriously concerned about the peace and security of Ethiopia, the Horn of Africa. In general, you are concerned about the peace and security of the continent.
Well,
and we find you have built peace and security architecture at the headquarters of the African Union. And how far is really Germany contributing for the cause of peace and security of this continent?
Well, let's divide it. Let's divide it up. Germany is very interested, of course, in the stability and peace and security in Ethiopia and in the Horn of Africa, and we consider the developments that are going on right now in Ethiopia and between Ethiopia and its neighbors something that contributes to the security in the region, and we hope that these changes really will be successful. For example, the opening up or the peace with Eritrea is something we acknowledge and we respect, and we think it was a bold move by the Prime Minister. So in whatever way we can, we would like to support these initiatives. As far as the African Union is concerned, we have been involved with the African Union in the area of peace and security for quite some time. You might know that Germany financed and built the peace and security building at the African Union compound, which is quite a unique building. It looks rather modest, but it's rather sophisticated because it's very environmentally very sophisticated, and it is constructed out of material that comes all from Ethiopia. So there is no imported material used in the building, which is something very special, and that was something that was deliberately done. But besides the building, we are supporting in various ways the activities of the African Union in the field of peace and security.
Now, how about the software? We have talked about the hardware.
Yeah, well, we do capacity building in various fields, in mediation. We support very, very strongly, for example, the border program that the African Union is doing, which is meant to reduce the risk of border conflicts on the continent. It's only a small part of the borders in Africa that are demarcated, so we contribute to the demarcation of borders between countries in order to avoid conflict around these borders, for example.
You are also concerned about refugees, natural resource conservation and development, democracy and good governance. Are your concerns here, and how are your efforts and your achievements in these issues?
Well, as far as our development or our economic cooperation and development cooperation is concerned, we have three focus areas. One is the technical and vocational training I mentioned. The other is on agriculture and food security, and the third one is in biodiversity. So we are working with Ethiopian partners in all these three areas. For example, in the field of agriculture, we are working on drought resilience, on land rehabilitation. I have visited very interesting projects both in the Tigray area but also in the Afar area, which show very concrete results in the Afar area where we spread the water once it's coming so that it makes land arable again. In the Tigray area, we very prominently with the partners, with the local partners, rehabilitate land and prevent a lot of erosion so that people can live again from the soil they are living on. You mentioned refugees. This is again another topic.
Yeah.
We acknowledge and we respect that Ethiopia is hosting a huge number of refugees. I think it's the second largest recipient countries of refugee in Africa. And we work mainly in this case with the international organizations like UNHCR, UNICEF and others to provide assistance to the Ethiopian authorities to take care of these huge number, almost 1 million refugees in the country. We also are involved in alleviating the situation of internally displaced, because you probably know there is a huge number, figures are a little bit not so clear, but between 2 million and 3 million internally displaced, which who are living in difficult conditions. So there we are also mainly working with the international agencies to help and to assist.
You're right. You've mentioned the internally displaced persons in this country. Yesterday there was a report from the Ethiopian Ministry of Peace, and it said it has returned over 1 million people from where they were. And that activity is underway, and the government is succeeding. We also appreciate Germany in hosting refugees from all over the world, particularly from Syria. That was very interesting and a great example for the whole world. Let's get back again to the new government of this country. How optimistic you are? Are you really confident that things are changing for the best in Ethiopia?
I think this you should ask in the first place the Ethiopian people, but the future is always open. But when I look at what's going on right now, at the enthusiasm of the government and of also of civil society, of the sincerity of the cabinet, of parliament working on these issues, I'm very confident that things go into the right directions. But we know that such fundamental changes in a political system, in a society, have a lot of challenges also. So one can never be sure what kind of challenges might arise, but I think the sincereness and the political will to change to a democratic, pluralistic and open society is there.
So this is what you foresee about this country? Oh, fantastic. And the 32nd Assembly of the African Heads of State and Government is going to happen soon, recently, in the coming days. What are you expecting from this assembly?
Well, as you might know, the assembly, the negotiations and the meetings are not open to non-member states. So we try to follow as far as we can what the discussions are, how far the reform is going. We are pretty impressed by the progress that is achieved as far as the African Continental Free Trade Area is concerned. It looks as if really very soon the number of ratifications will be reached in order for it to enter into force. I know that there are a lot of technical negotiations still pending, but I also know that the African Union, the experts and the political decision makers are very hard and really making it happen soon, and I think this will be a great and big progress for the African Union and for the Africans.
The issue of migration is expected to be at the center of their discussion.
Well, the issue of migration will be at the center because from our our publics in Europe very often have a wrong perspective, because the main streams of migration in Africa are going on within Africa. So there is a lot of movement and migration going on within Africa, and I think that's also an issue for the summit. As far as migration, illegal migration is concerned, there is a lot of cooperation going on between the UN, the European Union and the African Union to find ways to solve these issues, to partially repatriate people and give them some incentives, and to open some perspectives for those who are stranded somewhere in Libya or other countries. This has been going on for quite some time, and this will continue to go on.
You know, Europe is frustrating about African migrants. So how do you think that leaders can contain this problem here?
Well, we think that at least partially giving perspectives to people might ease the migration pressure, because most of the people, they would not want to leave their country if they had a good perspective and a good life in their own country. So this is one of the aspects. You probably know that migration is a very controversial issue in a number of European countries, and on how to limit it, but on the other hand on how to create legal ways of legal migration, so that people do not have to go the illegal way and get into very dangerous situations on the way.
Your final word is for Ethiopia and the continent?
Well, for Ethiopia and the continent, I think we are looking with new eyes, with a lot of hope to the continent, and we are thrilled by the developments going on in Ethiopia, and we wish the people and all the decision makers a lot of success and a lot of tenacity to go on with these reforms.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, dear viewers, that wraps up the program in this edition. Many thanks for joining us. That was Britta Wagner, Ambassador of Germany to Ethiopia. See you next time with yet another edition of the program. Bye-bye.